Hello friends, I am Shelly Clough and today is day 6 of 12 days of watercolor Christmas cards, and this design here is what we are going to be painting today. This one has some lettering on it so that you have space to add whatever lettering you want in the middle, but I had needed to work in some flowers because that is my thing if you don't know. So let's dive in and paint this card. So the first thing we're going to do is grab some paper. This is just my Canson XL watercolor paper that I have trimmed down and scored, and I have linked below the scoring board that I used for that. And then I'm just going to tape my paper into place. And again, always being aware of where my design is going to go. So I'm just going to tape kind of up in this portion and on this portion. All right, so my paper is all taped up. I'm going to dive into my design here. First thing I'm going to do is paint that poinsettia flower down at the bottom. And I am just grabbing my size 6 Princeton Neptune brush. I like this one for flowers and leaves because it holds a lot of water. So I am going to start out with this Christmas red that we've been using, which is just a combination of alizarin crimson and cadmium red, and mix up a nice concentrated color of that. And then I'm also going to grab a little bit of sap green. So this is going to be for kind of my center of the poinsettia. I like to mix up my colors before I get started. So grabbing some of this, getting a decent puddle going of it. And I like to add a little bit of indigo to that green to sort of deepen it up. Give my brush a rinse and we will get started. So the first thing I do for a poinsettia is I take some of that green color and I want it to be sort of coming off the page here. So I'm going to make my center just about an inch from the corner of this card here. So I'm just sort of dabbing my paint, making little blobs. So I want them kind of round-ish, but not perfect. So some little dots, and then I'm going to start adding my poinsettia leaves. And so poinsettia leaves, I add a little flick, and then I'm going to make sort of a leaf shape that has a nice point at the end. It's kind of like this, come up to that nice point, and then I will just fill it in. And I'm going to do a few of those. So a little flick down here. And again, if you're hitting the page, you just paint as if there was more to paint here, you know? So don't awkwardly like shape your petals away from the edges. Just sort of pretend like it keeps going. And I'm just going to paint around here. And I like to alternate kind of the size and shape of my petals just a little bit so that it looks a little bit more organic and it's capturing a little bit of the personality of a poinsettia plant where they've got some really small petals and some big ones. This way we don't have to worry about layering everything, but just sort of try to create some shape there. And again, just like adding that nice little point at the end of my leaves and then some over here. So I've got my little flick, adding a little petal there, and then one over this way. Just going right up to that corner edge. And then here I've got a few little awkward gaps. And so if I want to fix that, I'm just going to increase the size of a few of these petals. Just adding a little paint off to the side of them, sort of improve that gap. It's also adding some layering. I'll go through and just sort of redo some of that color on a portion of the leaf, and then like a little flick in the middle just helps to create some dimension on those flowers. Just deepening up those petals, bringing them in a little tighter to the center there. I'm going to make this one even a little wider here. I want to go ahead and let them touch in several places so that it feels nice and full. All right, feeling pretty good about that. And then I'm actually just going to add a few extra little flicks of red in here, sort of giving the impression of some petals behind this first layer that we're looking at. So now that I have my flower laid out, I'm going to start adding in some leaves. And I actually want to do 2 tones of greenery on this piece to help it feel a little more dynamic. So the first one, I'm going to do that sap green combo. And these greens will be fairly similar, but they'll be just different enough that it will give it some personality. So again, just getting a good puddle of the sap green and then adding a little bit of indigo to that. And then I'm going to make a couple leaves coming off this poinsettia. So like a little flick and then a nice big leaf with a big point at the end. You can sort of tinker with the shape as you fill it in. And then one kind of coming off this way, kind of swooping out, a little bit smaller on that second one. And I like to leave little tidbits of white out as I go, just to help give a little bit of personality there. And then I'm mixing up just a slightly darker green that has more of that indigo color and just sort of laying that on a portion of the leaf to help give it some dimension and a little line through the middle. So there is my first green. Now I'm going to mix up my second green, which is the one I've used for a lot of other cards that you've seen me do. We're going to do this Viridian green and then add burnt umber to that. So I'm just going to get a good puddle of that going. And this will be for sort of that garland look. Go in here with some brown. And I just keep going until it almost looks too brown, and then I know it's about right. If I don't add enough brown, it really just looks too artificial of a green. So if you think it's enough brown, add a little bit more. Then I'm just adding a little bit of water here and there to make sure it can move around. And now, so you can see on this, on our example card here, I have some garland sort of swooping up and adding a little bit of movement to this card. And so I'm going to do that now, kind of over here. We're going to come make a swoop up that way. And then I'm going to zigzag my brush to make these kind of stem features. So it almost looks like pine needles, but a little bit thicker. It's actually a lot quicker and easier to paint than pine needles, I think. So I'm just going to add some of those flicks and then come over here and kind of do the same thing. We'll do a nice curve coming up. We're trying to create sort of a frame for this middle section of our card so that we can have some words there. Just getting those zigzags coming down just right up to the edge of that poinsettia. And I'm just tapping a little extra color right there where it meets up. And then if you want to, you can kind of do some little bits, kind of flicks and stuff of greenery. Just some loose marks to sort of fill things in. I'm also going to take a little bit of that green, just tap some extra in the center of that poinsettia to give that some dimension too. And then I want a little bit on this top corner to sort of frame the other portion of my card. So just sticking with that same green, I'm going to make a piece sort of coming down, not too far so that I leave some room for text in the middle there. Just that same thing, sort of scooting my brush back and forth at an angle, sort of using the tip of my brush, like laying it down and scooting with the tip of my brush, just all the way up to the top there. And then a little bit kind of down like this. Doing my zigzags here. And on the other side. And then we're going to do one kind of curving this way. Anytime you can work some curved lines into your art, I really do think it helps things look more kind of realistic and interesting. It like creates movement in the painting. I'm just going to tap a little extra color here and there so I have some nice dimension in that greenery. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. I'm going to let it dry completely, and then we will add some lettering in the middle there. Okay, so this painting is totally dry now, and we can add our lettering on it. So for the lettering, I'm just going to grab a ruler here, and I'm just going to mark a line kind of on the top and bottom of this ruler to help get my letters placed. Just want to do it nice and lightly so that I can erase it easily afterwards. I think those two are going to work well for me. And the first pen I'm going to grab is my Decocolor liquid gold pen, and I like to make my first letters with that and then go over it with a second pen that's a little thicker. It's also by Decocolor, and I will link that below as well. So I'm going to start here, and if you are looking for tips on lettering, there's a friend of mine who I learned to letter from. I'm not a pro at it, but I like to. And her name is, it's B Goods Lettering, and I'll link her channel as well if you want some. She does a lot of wax seal stuff too, but I will link her channel if you want a good lettering resource. Okay. There are some letters. And then what I'm going to do is just go and thicken up any of the downstrokes. All right, and then once that is all the way dry, then I will go in with my favorite little eraser pen and erase that pencil line. Okay, now I can peel my tape off. And there we have our gold embellished Christmas card. I am going to add my little stamp on the back. Again, if you want to make your own custom stamp like this, I have a link down below that you can use. And then I also made a template that you can use to create your own design. It just says handmade by Shelley Clough Art. And then I just kind of center that on the back, stamp it on, and ta-da, there's my cute little stamp. Now it's been personalized. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you're having fun with these 12 days of Christmas cards. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow to catch the next one, and we will see you all in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.